Medieval battles were not just clashes of swords, shields, and strategies. They were also battles against the land itself. Geography often played a decisive role in determining the outcome of a conflict. From towering mountains to dense forests, the terrain shaped the fate of armies and empires. In this documentary, we will explore how the natural world became a silent commander on the battlefield, influencing tactics, strategies, and the very course of history. The importance of high ground. One of the most critical advantages in medieval warfare was holding the high ground. Elevated positions provided a clear view of the battlefield, allowing archers to rain down arrows with deadly precision. Meanwhile, attacking uphill was a grueling task, exhausting soldiers before they even reached their enemies. At the Battle of Agincourt, fought in 1415 during the 100 Years' War, the English army, led by King Henry V, faced a much larger French force. The English positioned themselves on a narrow strip of land flanked by dense forests, with their archers taking the high ground. The French knights, weighed down by heavy armor, struggled to advance through the muddy, sloping terrain. The result was a catastrophic defeat for the French, with thousands of knights falling to English arrows and the unforgiving mud. The high ground wasn't just about visibility or range. It was about morale. Soldiers fighting uphill were already at a psychological disadvantage. They could see the enemy above them, and they knew the climb would be exhausting. Meanwhile, the defenders felt a sense of invincibility, knowing they had the advantage of gravity and momentum on their side. The Battle of Agincourt is a prime example of how terrain could neutralize numerical superiority. The French outnumbered the English, but the muddy, sloping ground turned their strength into a weakness. Geography, in this case, decided the outcome of the battle. Forests and ambushes. Forests were both a blessing and a curse in medieval warfare. While they provided cover for ambushes, they also made it difficult for large armies to maneuver. Armies that could navigate these natural obstacles often gained the upper hand. In the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, fought in 9 AD, Germanic tribes led by Arminius used the dense woodland to trap and annihilate 3 Roman legions under the command of Publius Quinctilius Varus. The forest neutralized the Romans' superior discipline and formation, forcing them into a chaotic close-quarters battle where their tactics were useless. The Romans were used to fighting in open fields, where their formations and discipline could shine. But in the dense, unfamiliar forest, they were vulnerable. The Germanic tribes, who knew the terrain intimately, used it to their advantage, launching hit-and-run attacks and disappearing into the trees. The Battle of Teutoburg Forest was a turning point in Roman history. It marked the end of Roman expansion into Germania and demonstrated the power of terrain in warfare. The forest became a weapon, and the Romans, for all their might, were powerless against it. The lesson of Teutoburg Forest was clear: never underestimate the terrain. It could be as deadly as any sword or arrow. Rivers and choke points. Rivers and other natural barriers often served as choke points, forcing armies into vulnerable positions. Crossing a river under enemy fire was a perilous endeavor, and many battles were won or lost at these critical junctures. At the Battle of Stamford Bridge, fought in 1066, a single Norse axeman held off an entire English army at a narrow river crossing. According to legend, this lone warrior blocked the bridge, killing dozens of English soldiers before he was finally defeated. His stand delayed the English forces, giving his comrades time to prepare for battle. While the story of the axeman may be embellished, it underscores the importance of choke points in medieval warfare. A narrow bridge or ford could become a killing ground, where a small force could hold off a much larger army. Rivers were natural barriers that could slow down or even stop an advancing army. Crossing them required careful planning and often came at a high cost. Commanders had to weigh the risks of crossing against the benefits of reaching the other side. The Battle of Stamford Bridge ended in victory for the English, but the cost was high. The river and the bridge had turned what should have been a quick advance into a bloody struggle. Castles and fortifications. Castles were not just symbols of power, they were strategic strongholds designed to exploit the terrain. Built on hills, cliffs, or surrounded by water, they were nearly impregnable. Sieges could last for months, with the defenders relying on their geographical advantage to outlast the attackers. During the siege of Château Gaillard, fought between 1203 and 1204, the fortress's location on a steep cliff made it a formidable challenge for the besieging forces. The castle, built by Richard the Lionheart, was considered one of the most advanced fortifications of its time. It took over 6 months of relentless effort for the French to breach its defenses. The siege of Château Gaillard demonstrated the importance of terrain in defensive warfare. The castle's position made it nearly impossible to attack directly, forcing the French to resort to elaborate siege tactics, including tunneling and building siege towers. Castles were more than just stone walls. They were carefully designed to take advantage of the surrounding terrain. A castle on a hill or cliff was not just harder to attack. It also gave the defenders a psychological edge. They could see the enemy coming from miles away, while the attackers had to contend with the daunting task of scaling the heights. Despite its formidable defenses, Château Gaillard eventually fell, but the siege was a testament to the power of terrain in medieval warfare. Even the strongest fortresses could be taken, but only at great cost. The human factor. While geography played a crucial role, it was the commanders who decided how to use it. A skilled leader could turn a disadvantage into an opportunity, using the terrain to outmaneuver and outthink their opponents. At the Battle of Crécy, fought in 1346 during the Hundred Years' War, English forces led by King Edward III positioned themselves on a slope, forcing the French cavalry to charge uphill. The result was a devastating defeat for the French, with thousands of knights falling to English arrows and the unforgiving terrain. The Battle of Crécy showcased the importance of terrain in offensive warfare. By choosing the right position, the English were able to neutralize the French cavalry, one of the most feared forces in medieval Europe. Commanders who understood the terrain could use it to their advantage, turning what might seem like a disadvantage into a strength. The English at Crécy knew that the slope would slow down the French cavalry and make them easy targets for their archers. It was a masterstroke of tactical genius. The Battle of Crécy was a turning point in medieval warfare. It demonstrated that even the most powerful armies could be defeated by a combination of terrain and tactics. In the medieval world, the land was more than just a backdrop for war. It was a weapon, a shield, and a strategist. From the high ground to the dense forests, geography shaped the course of history, proving that sometimes the greatest ally or enemy was the earth itself. As we look back on these battles, we are reminded that the terrain was not just a stage for human conflict. It was an active participant, shaping the destiny of nations and the lives of countless soldiers.